There are all sorts of different candies that are available on the market to help satisfy our sweet tooth. Many of these candies hold special memories with us thanks to how they taste or who we enjoyed them with. However, some candies that we once loved have been discontinued. They are now nothing more than a memory, but way deep down we would love to taste them again. In this video, we will have a look at some of the discontinued chocolates that we want back. 1950s television ads show a Peter Paul's Almond Cluster Bar in the same commercial as their Almond Joy Bar. They were meant for those that wanted a bar with even more crunchy almonds. They were said to be indescribably delicious. In the 1970s, they showed them in commercials and said that they were an ugly candy bar. They then showed a lady in a bikini while describing the bar and saying that ugly is beautiful. This was a candy that was full of chocolate and almonds. In 1978, Peter Paul merged with Cadbury, and then 10 years later, Hershey acquired the Peter Paul Cadbury's U.S. operations. That's when this almond cluster disappeared. The Baffle Bar was from the Cartier Candy Company, Inc. in California, and it began appearing in the 1920s. They described it as a flavor all of its own. It had rich California cream and butter, crispy nut meats, and fine milk chocolate. The wrapper was a little plain, but that added to the candy's mysterious appeal. However, after more than 50 years in production, this candy bar left us baffled as to why it disappeared in the 1970s. The Hollywood Candy Company was formed in 1912 in Hollywood, Minnesota. One of their well-known candy bars was the butternut, which came out in 1916. It consisted of caramel and peanuts surrounded by milk chocolate. Later on, it was produced by the Leaf Candy Company until it was gobbled up by Hershey's in 1996. Since that time, it has been locked away from sight. However, there are some rumors that it might be produced by an independent candy company that acquired the rights. In 1965, the Peter Paul Candy Company introduced the Caravel bar, which was made with caramel, crisp rice, and milk chocolate. It was very similar to how the 100 Grand bar was by Nestle, which came out in 1966. However, the Caravel bar was much more creamier with a softer caramel center. Unfortunately, the Caravel disappeared around the same time that Cadbury took over Peter Paul in 1988. Chocolite was made by Nestle, and it was the first U.S.-made puffed milk chocolate bar with crispy chips. It came out in 1971, and this candy bar was somewhat lighter because it had pockets with tiny air bubbles that were infused throughout the chocolate. Sadly, this fun chocolate bar went off the store's shelves in the early 80s. The Clark Candy Company was founded in 1887 by David L. Clark, who was an Irish-born candy salesman. The Clark Company became well known for their Clark bar, which came out in 1917. But in the 1970s, Clark wanted you to know that there was another famous bar. The Crispy Bar came out in 1977, and it really sold well. It was a type of Rice Krispie chocolate bar. Despite its popularity, this is one that you won't find in stores anymore. The Hollywood Candy Company came up with the milkshake candy bar in 1927. The milkshake was a chocolate candy bar made with milk chocolate, caramel, and malted nougat. It was similar to the Milky Way bar, but the milkshake's nougat was malted. This gave it more of a milkshake flavor. In 1980, the plant where they made the milkshake bars burned to the ground, which ceased production of the candy bar after more than 50 years. In 1972, the Peter Paul Candy Company came out with a candy called No Jelly, which was a strange name since it was a peanut butter bar. Perhaps they wanted to make it known what it did not include, or they just wanted the name to stand out among the competition. This was a pure milk chocolate bar with peanut butter and Crispies. Peter Paul also had another candy bar that was exactly the same thing, but it had the name Sidekicks. It is possible that it may have been a name that they used in certain test markets. Either way, both are names that you will not see anymore, and for sure not with the Peter Paul name on it. Today, everyone is familiar with the Kit Kat bar, and it is one that many people love. It dates back to 1935 when it was first launched in England as the Roundtree's Chocolate Crisp. In 1937, it was renamed as the Kit Kat. The Kit Kat bar came to the United States when Hershey was granted licensing rights to produce the candy bar as long as the Hershey name itself was never sold. Since that time, Kit Kat has become one of Hershey's top 5 candy bars. What is interesting is how Nestle purchased the Roundtree Company in 1988. As a result, Nestle makes all the Kit Kats that are found in the UK and Ireland. However, the Kit Kat is not the only one of its kind. In 1973, M&M Mars Company came out with a snik sticks, which was directly aimed at taking on the popular Hershey's Kit Kat bar. It was pretty much the exact same thing, other than it was 6 smaller sticks rather than 4 larger ones. Even the packaging looks eerily similar. But its life on store shelves was rather short. It was discontinued in 1977. The Peter Paul Star Bar came out in the late 1970s. The old commercials from that time period featured sort of a Star Wars opening crawl feel, so perhaps they were trying to capitalize on the franchise's success. Sadly, these bars are no longer made by Peter Paul. However, as we discovered earlier, Cadbury acquired the Peter Paul brand in 1988. So these Star Bars are still being made by Cadbury and can be found in the United Kingdom. They are a chocolate-covered bar that is filled with caramel and crushed roasted peanuts. This candy is also sold in Canada and Germany under the name of Wonder Bar. Summit bars came out in the late 1970s and they were initially advertised as a cookie bar. However, there were some attempts to advertise it as a candy. This was really the type of snack that appealed to lovers of both. They can certainly be compared to other candy in the same categories, such as Kit Kat and Twix. Summit bars were a wafer with confectionery cream that was topped with peanuts and coated in chocolate. They were made by Mars, and the company tried to revamp the bar in 1983, but their efforts failed and the Summit bar disappeared a couple years later. The Texan chocolate bar was a creation from Roundtree in the United Kingdom, and it was introduced in 1973. It was known as the chewy chocolate-covered bar that stuck around in your mouth for a long time. I'm sure that dentists loved it because it kept them employed. The wrapper featured a Texas or American red, white, and blue theme, and it was pretty catchy. Their advertisements featured a Texas cowboy in different scenarios, and they tried their best to make it have a Texas accent. This candy bar became an iconic part of the decade in the UK, and it was cherished by many. Despite its popularity in the 70s, the toffee and nougat chocolate Texan bar was discontinued in 1984. In 2005, Nestle, who purchased Roundtree in 1987, did a limited edition relaunch in 2005. As of now, this candy remains only a nostalgic memory. Another sort of Western-themed chocolate bar that was once popular was the Bandit. The advertisements featured a group of bandits that would steal the bars and then get caught red-handed. They were popular for a number of years, and they were a type of milk chocolate wafer bar. Their popular slogan was "You can't stand it with Bandit." Sadly, the Bandit bar is no longer around. The Whatchamacallit is a creation of the Hershey Candy Company, and it was launched in 1978. This candy had a lot of success throughout the 80s, but for some reason the company ran fewer ads on it after that time when compared to their other candies. In 2009, Hershey's introduced the Thingamajig, which was similar to the Whatchamacallit. It had chocolate with Cocoa Crisps and peanut butter on the inside. This candy bar did not stay on the market long, and it was removed from Hershey's list of candies in production just 3 years later. Nestle's triple-decker bar was a favorite for many people. It was released in the early 1960s and was available until the early 1970s. The triple-decker bar consisted of 3 layers: a semi-sweet chocolate bottom, a white chocolate middle, and a milk chocolate top. Unfortunately, this candy bar only lives on in the memories of those that loved it. Whether you enjoyed these chocolates or not, I'm sure you've experienced others that are no longer around. What are some of the candies that you miss, and what are some of the memories that you have with them? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching.